Well, hello. Today we got Cold Hearts, which is a 1999, I believe it's an independent film. I don't know, maybe it was a TV movie. I'm not sure. I honestly don't know a lot about this movie, to be fair. The only reason I know it exists is because A to the double J over there, Amy Jo Johnson, the original Pink Power Ranger, is in this in a fairly prominent role. So, knowing that, I had to check it out. Obviously, as a youngin', I grew up watching Power Rangers, so anything that they're kind of involved in, I'm a little bit intrigued by. I know Tui Trang was in the second Crow movie, and that was like a really big budget, so I think she's the only one that went like far enough to get like a major motion picture. But I'll have to look into if any of the actors that play the other Rangers were in anything similar to Cold Hearts or not, or along that vibe, whatever. It doesn't have to be vampires, obviously. But a lot of people say this is a ripoff of The Lost Boys. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about the story, and you can decide for yourself if you feel that that's accurate. So, spoiler alert, you've been warned. Don't watch this if you don't want the movie ruined, because I will be telling you exactly what goes down in the film, including the ending. You've been warned. Alright, so this takes place in Jersey. I don't know much about Jersey, but there's like a pier area and a beach and like an amusement park and stuff. So I'm assuming that's like a staple of like Jersey Shore or whatever. I don't really know. So forgive my ignorance. But anyway, that's like a main location of this film. Actually, that is pretty much the main location of the film. So we have these three friends, Victoria, Alicia, and Darius, who are, just hanging out and whatnot. And at this point you think, okay, they're, normal teens or whatever, and out of nowhere this douchebag Chaz, aka Charles, aka Chuck, aka whatever you want to call him, or whatever they call him in this movie. They call him all three. I'm going to call him Chaz because that's what he's referred to the most of. He and his gang pop up and they cause a ruckus, and he ends up like hitting Victoria and like knocking her out, and all the others like, oh my god, you bastard. And why? I don't know. But out of nowhere, you hear this person saying, leave her alone, basically sticking up for her. And they don't really get a chance to... Well, she doesn't get a chance to see who it is, but the other two do. And so they're kind of swooning. So Darius is gay, for what it's worth. It doesn't play a major part in the movie, but just so you know why he's swooning over another dude. So, and Alicia is Amy's character. And forgive me, but I don't know the name of the actor who plays Victoria or Darius or any of the other guys, but Amy's Alicia, and then Victoria is the main character. Anyway, whatever. So all that happens, bit of a scuffle. Yeah, he's like threatening her and knocks her out, and some random person basically stands up for her and scares them off, or wards them off, or whatever you want to call it. So she's back at home recovering, and her two friends are there by her side, basically saying, like, who was he? About the guy who stood up for her, and, like, well, obviously they're pissed off that Chaz is being a dink, like, hitting a woman, all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, they're kind of swooning over this guy who stuck up for them, and, it shows there's a later scene after like the recovery. She's lying in bed on her own, and I guess Chaz is like talking to her psychically through her head, and this is kind of the first hint that we get, like, oh, okay, they're vampires, cool, all right. So yeah, he's talking psychically in her head, and he's like, I own you, blah blah blah, and she's basically like, shut the fuck up. She just turns up her music, and some angsty 90s music plays. So yeah, that's one way to do it. Yeah, so obviously they have a history, right? We'll find out what it is at some point. Then they another cut to Victoria again later. She's going for a walk and having a smoke and all that, and this guy in the trench coat comes down, introduces himself as Seth. He's the dude that had interrupted the whole... Well, didn't interrupt it. He came a little too late. I mean, she already got knocked out, but he stopped it from getting worse, I guess. So, whatever. They introduce each other. There's some like light flirting and casual talking back and forth, and then he like sniffs the air, and she's like, what the hell was that all about? And he's like, oh, it's gonna rain. She's like, what? You can smell the rain? He's like, yeah. Okay, well, what's gonna happen? Is it gonna be like a thunderstorm? He's like, I don't know. I just know it's gonna be a heavy rain. Maybe a thunderstorm. I don't know. And then sure enough, like 10 seconds later, it starts pouring, like downpour, torrential. So there you go. He can smell the weather. Is he a vampire? Perhaps. I don't know. Well, I do know, but you don't know if you haven't seen it. If you've seen it, then you know too. But anyway, whatever. He smells the rain. She's like, okay, well, let's go back to my place, right? Because, you know, just met a guy, bring him back to your place. Sure, why not? She does that. She changes into some clothes. They're talking kind of. Seth said basically like he had to get away from his college buddies who, you know, they're all about the party life, whatever, beach time, etc. Victoria and him are talking, and she's kind of like, yeah, basically my mom died or whatever, and my dad left and all that stuff, and they're opening up, I guess, and it's interrupted. However, her phone rings. She answers the phone. Darius on the other end, and apparently she's like, what? Has she eaten? Has she taken any? Okay, I'll be right there. So it turns out that Alicia is also a vampire, but she is very opposed to the whole lifestyle of killing people and drinking their blood and stuff, and she's essentially like refusing to hurt people, which is kind of a neat take. It's different from the Buffy take where it's like vampires, once they're turned, they're like all demon and whatever, unless they get their soul back. Well, in here, vampires are more, you know, they retain their consciousness and their personality, so that's kind of a neat idea. I mean, it's been done in other movies, so it's not anything revolutionary, but whatever. Anyway, so she's really not doing well. She's really pale and all that, and Victoria brings her over some little blood vials. So Darius is like, yeah, she's in there. You might be able to convince her to eat. I can't, so good luck with that. And he takes off because, I mean, he can't really do anything at that point. So what I understand is she's the oldest vampire of the three, and Alicia is, I guess, the youngest one, so still coming to terms with things. And like I said, yeah, she doesn't like the whole concept of killing. And none of them do, actually. I think they're all kind of doing the blood diet or whatever. Like, she has a blood dealer contact that works at the hospital, and she buys like bags of blood or whatever. And anyway, the batch that she brings for Alicia is not good. Apparently it's like gone bad or something, and like Alicia spits it out and says, okay, that's awful. So I mean, her friend is in rough shape, so Victoria says, all right, you know what, just drink from me. And she drinks from her, perks up almost instantly. So from what I gather, correct me if I'm wrong, I've only literally just watched this once for the first time, maybe it explains somewhere, but vampires can essentially, as long as they're like continuously supplied with like a fresh amount of blood, I think they can survive in the sunlight, I'm assuming, but like without it in their system, I guess when they get weaker, the sun can hurt them or whatnot, and I'll explain why I say that later. Anyway, so she's refreshed, and they go out, and you go for a night walk, and there's two cops that are arresting some guys, and as they're walking by, one of the guys calls out, fucking sluts. Like, they're in cuffs. Like, I mean, shut up, guys. You're already getting arrested. Anyway, the cops throw them in the trailer, and they go off, I guess, to grab two other guys that were causing a ruckus and bring them to and they have like a paddy wagon, you know, like the big van with the back. They shut the door or whatever, and these two guys are in there. And so Alicia and Victoria look at each other like, okay, well, these guys just like called us sluts, and they're obviously being arrested anyways. They're shitty people. We can take them down. And they do. And they absolutely massacre these people. They don't show, but yeah, they kill them. So I guess in certain situations they don't feel bad if the person's a dick, but if the person's like an innocent person, maybe they feel bad. I don't really understand how that works either. So that's a little bit sloppy in the writing too, because the whole thing for Alicia's character is she doesn't want to kill vampires. She doesn't want to kill vampires. She doesn't want to kill people, even though that's what she needs to eat. And yet here she is with Victoria just killing these people. So I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, that happens, and they're fine with it, and they're chill and happy and whatever. Yeah, then it shows Seth on the beach, and so it cuts to him, and he's with his college buddies, and they're kind of egging him on, like, hey, I saw you talking to that girl Victoria, you should go get some of that. And he's like, you know, I don't know if I have a chance. And they're like, just go, just go. So he does, and he's asking around, and he asked this woman, because apparently Victoria had told him that she worked at the fair or whatever, like part-time, and he asked the woman, and she's like, I have no idea who Victoria is. There's no one here that works by that name. And he's like, really? Because she told me. And then out of the side panel comes good old Chaz and his group of buddies, and they're like, hey dude, why are you looking for Victoria? And he's like, Victoria? And they're like, yeah. He's like, oh, you mean Vicky? And he's like, yeah, you know exactly who the fuck I'm talking about. Excuse my language, sorry. I'm getting real passionate because it's such a great movie. No. But, yeah, he's like, obviously that's what I meant, and don't piss around and tell me. So basically they have a dick measuring contest for a little bit, and I guess nobody wins because they convince him to ditch his buddies and join them. And even his buddies are like, Seth, what are you doing? Like, are these guys cool? Are you good? Like, and he's like, yeah, we're good. Anyway, he goes and follows them into this like mini golf course that's abandoned and shut down for the night, I guess. And they're talking, and there's a lot of like homophobic jokes. So obviously it's the 90s, right? So like even Amy Jo Johnson calls someone gay, and it's like, oh, come on, Amy. But it's the script, whatever. It was less of a thing back then. Not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying it's a thing that people said. Yeah, so that happens. There's a little bit of a scuffle, and one of the vampire guys, like, sort of half-ass attacks him, and somehow he overpowers this guy. So now you're thinking, okay, yeah, he's definitely a vampire, obviously, too. Because he's able to hold his own against this guy and basically shove him off, and he's able to leave without getting his throat ripped out or whatever, right? So, okay. Obviously, he's got something going on, too. Anyway. Yeah, so Alicia and Victoria are talking, and Alicia's really stressing out. Like, she's not digging the vampire life at all. Like, she's trying to figure out, like, does it get easier? And Victoria's like, yeah, it took me, like, 8 years to, like, get used to it and whatnot. So that's kind of how I know that she's older, because it just says right there. And she explains that basically she had been obsessed with like Anne Rice and vampire books and whatever when she was younger, and she was reading on up on how to find them and whatnot. And apparently, if you give off a certain vibe, they can pick up on it. And anyway, so she convinced her boyfriend to come with her and do that, and they gave off that vibe. And some vampire named Locke ended up turning her and her boyfriend, and With the vampirism, apparently there's like a bit of like pent-up rage that you have to learn to control or whatever. And anyway, the boyfriend ended up losing his temper and killing like one of his best friends, and that shook him to the core once he realized what he'd done, and ended up killing himself by staying out in the sunlight overnight without drinking any blood or anything, and burning up entirely, and basically offing himself. And so she has dealt with that since, basically knowing that it's her fault that he had to die, because he didn't even really want to be part of the vampire thing. He just cared about her so much or whatever, and was just like down because she was down. And I don't know, sounds a little bit White Knight-ish, but whatever. Anyway, not here to say whether or not he was a good boyfriend or not, because I don't know. He's not even in the movie technically, so light source is terrible. There we go. See my ugly face. There you go. Well, at least you got Amy next to me to look at, so you can just like focus on her and ignore me. Anyway, we're getting carried away. So, right. Okay. So then there's another like jump cut to like her. Alicia and Darius are like. No, sorry. Victoria goes to talk to Seth or whatever, and Alicia and Darius like let them have their things, like, ooh, they're gonna flirt, whatever, we're gonna, let them have their space. And so that happens. But in the meantime, Alicia and Darius are on like this little, I don't know if it's like a pedal train thing, I don't know, whatever it is. Anyway, they're exploring the pier on this, and Chaz and his group of dinks come, and they start harassing him. They're calling him gay, of course, because that's the thing that you do in the 90s when you're a vampire. That's edgy. Yeah. he ends up using like his, so like in certain myth like stories, vampires can kind of like put you in under like a thrall where you're kind of like you listen to them and obey them without realizing it. And he's like, don't you have somewhere to be, to Darius? And Darius is like, yeah, I gotta go check my emails. And he takes off, and Alicia just looks at him, and she's like kind of pissed off and a little scared too. And she's like, don't do that on him, man, like that's not cool. And he's like, well, why don't you come with us tonight? And he does it on her, and she's okay. Anyway, it cuts to them on a Ferris wheel. And basically Chaz and Alicia are on the one seat together, and he's like, so, see anything you like out there? She's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you said you were hungry, right? She's like, and I guess the thrall takes over her, and she's like, not that one, too skinny, that one. And then they cut to basically a lifeguard who gets killed, and then some people on like some water slides get killed, and you don't really see them get killed, but you know that they take him down. Then there's a cool scene where it's like I guess it's like the tunnel of love. So there's like a couple on an inner tube going through like a tunnel or whatever, and it shows Alicia and Chaz standing on top of the water as the tunnel thing floats, and Alicia goes to bite, and they cut before there's any blood or anything. But that was actually a cool scene, like showing them standing on the water, or if they were floating maybe, but it looked like they were standing on the water. Anyway, probably a pretty simple practical effect, but it was done cool. That one scene I did legitimately think was neat. So props to that. You got one right for sure. Anyway, they basically go on a killing spree, and they're killing people, and the whole gang is killing people. And then they meet up again, and then he snaps her out of it, and she's all covered in blood, and she's looking down. She's like, what did you make me do? And obviously, being the person she is the whole time, she's been struggling with it. She doesn't want to kill people, even though again she did with Victoria kill those two guys in the cop car. So that's kind of why, like, I don't know, they shouldn't have done that. They should have had them like maybe be attacked and they had to kill them or something, and it's like, since they're dead they'll feed. But like, I don't really understand Alicia's issue, unless it's just that she doesn't want to kill innocents but has no problem killing people that are jerks or something. I don't know. It kind of weakens her character a little bit for me, and no fault to Amy, of course, it's the script writing, but yeah, that was kind of like, I don't know. Anyway, whatever, that's neither here or there. So she freaks out and takes off, and one of the guys in the group thinks that was not cool of Chaz, so he actually goes to find Seth and tell him essentially, like, listen, he tells him the whole plan that Chaz has. Chaz wants to kill her, and he wants to kill him, and he wants the last thing that Victoria seeing that. Let me start over. He wants to kill Victoria or Vicky and kill him, and the last thing that Vicky sees, Chaz wants to be him killing Seth. So I guess he's gonna make her watch him kill Seth and then kill her or whatever. Anyway, he tells her that, and he's like, why are you telling me this? And he's like, because I saw what he did to Alicia, and Alicia was a good kid. Like, there was no need to do that to her, or whatever. Anyway, so he's now aware of the plan. And then there's a scene where Vicky's lying in bed, and she can't sleep, and she tries calling Alicia, and there's no answer, and she's kind of annoyed. I don't know if this is before or after. There's like a whole blood bag deal thing too, but it's not really that important to the plot. It just shows how she gets her blood. But anyway, so she goes to Alicia's house and knocks on the door and pushes herself in, and it's daytime and she's not burning. So that's why I'm thinking, like, because when they consume blood they can handle the sunlight, but if they're like running low on blood, or if it's not in their system, they can't, I guess. Or maybe you hit a certain age of a vampire and the sun no longer bothers you. Anyway, she finds Alicia in the sun, burnt, like 3rd degree burns, and she's in the process of like dying essentially. And she's like, oh my god, okay, drink this, I brought you blood, drink it now. And Alicia's like, I can't. It's already too late for me. I can't keep going on like this. I can't keep hurting people. it's not worth living. I don't want to be that kind of a monster or whatever. So she's essentially doing what Vicky's boyfriend did initially, way back when. And obviously Vicky's a little bit hurt because this is like one of her two friends basically, and it's the same way that her boyfriend died, and it's just a whole thing. And then they show her die, which is kind of cool. Like she slowly melts and her jaw falls off, and then she like disintegrates into like ash and stuff, and it's actually kind of a neat. The jaw falling off part was cool, and then the ash part was kind of fake looking, so it was like a 50-50 thing. But yeah, poor Alicia, like shit, man. What a dink. Anyway, she has her cry, and her and Darius put her ashes into the sea and all that, and there's a nice little send-off. But then the rest of the movie, basically, it's like she doesn't even care anymore. So I don't know. I know you got to progress the story, but it seemed to have an immediate big impact and then no impact at all after that. Because she's even talking to Seth at another part, and he's like, oh, did you end up meeting up with your friends? I think he said their names were Darius and Alicia, and she's like, yeah, well. About that, you know, I said Alicia was sick or whatever, and she won't take her medicine, referring to blood, I guess. Well, I found her today, and I don't really want to talk about it. And it's like, okay, I get you. And then he goes in this whole story of like, okay, well, I lost someone too. My girlfriend and I were hiking, and she heard something, and a big gray thing jumped out and attacked her and ripped her throat out, and I fought it off, and blah, 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 blah. And he watched his girlfriend die, and like as she was dying, she was mouthing, I love you to him and stuff. And so they have like a little bonding moment there. And then later in the movie, they show one of Chaz's guys. That's when he meets up with Seth and tells him all that stuff about Chaz wanting to kill Vicky and then kill him and all that. And so that night, Chaz is out and he knows it's gonna happen, and he's waiting there, and Vicky sees him and comes up. He's like, hey, what's up, baby cakes? She's into him, I guess, whatever. Anyway. Well, actually, I don't know if she is really at this point. I think there's too much going on in her life right now. Just lost her friend, Psycho X. That's a vampire, whatever. Being a vampire herself. So, okay, maybe there's no hanky-panky stuff going on. But anyway, they chat. And then, of course, Chaz and his buddies show up. And Chaz kills the guy who informed him, like, right in front of him. He's like, yeah, you're the Judas of the group or something, and just snaps his neck. And he attacks Seth, who, well, fuck, he's a werewolf. So there you go. Just let's throw it out there. He transforms into a werewolf, and they're all like, okay. Chaz puts up a decent fight. His buddies are not willing to get involved. I guess they don't want to tangle with a werewolf. So in this world, I guess werewolves are stronger than vampires. I mean, based on whatever movie franchise you're watching, one's usually a little bit stronger than the other. In this case, the werewolf's stronger. So the werewolf basically, well, sort of. So eventually, Chaz does overpower Seth and has him on the ground, and that's when Vicky comes out of nowhere and like rips Chaz's heart out, and then rips his heart in half and throws it on the ground, and Chaz falls down and the light flies out of him and he dies, and his friends are all like, oh fuck, and they take off. And then she looks down and Seth's gone, so Seth fucked off somewhere and she doesn't know where, and that's the last we see from any of these people, because the last scene is two cops on the beach finding it, and one's freaking out like, oh, what the hell is this? What the hell is this? And he's like, dude, weren't you briefed? So obviously, like it's implying the cops know that there are vampires, and it's like a regular thing. And the guy faints, and he's calling him like a punk ass bitch. And then it zooms on into the sand, and there's like blood and a pair of pants and no body. And you hear the guy say, man, tell someone to come in here and clean up all this vampire blood or whatever the hell it is. And then you see the heart beating in the sand, and then the credits roll, and it's like, okay, so there's a lot to take in here. I mean, the movie, I think it had a plan, and I think if executed properly and, you know, maybe they fleshed out a little bit better and the jumps weren't so erratic, it could have been an actual, like, a low budget, granted, but maybe a sleeper hit or a cult classic or something. But there were too many things in it that were not great. So again, like the whole, if Alicia's so upset about, you know, killing people, why did she kill the guy that just got arrested, or the two guys that got arrested in the car, and not feel bad about that? But then when she was killing the lifeguard and the people in the tunnel of love and whatnot, why was she horrified about that? So I don't know. That was weird. There were jump cuts that didn't make sense to me. Like they'd show, like there was one where it was 3 different scenes of Vicky in a row, and they just like jumped from, I can't remember the order it was, but like say it was her and Alicia talking, and then it jump cuts to her on the beach and Seth comes talking, and then it jump cuts to her in the carnival thing. Like it seemed weird. There was no transition. It was just like, okay, we need this scene, and this scene, and this is the order they go with this character, but we're not going to connect them in any way. We're just going to show the scenes, and that was really weird. So that made it kind of jumpy. I didn't care for that. Yeah, I mean, the acting wasn't horrible. It wasn't great by any means. Again, they're working with the script they're given, so it was okay. I mean, I'm not going to say anything bad about the acting. It was fine for what it was. Even the script wasn't too bad. There was a lot of stuff like gay and homo and stuff like that, but again, it's the 90s. It's a different time. Sort of like, you know, Subservience, where you like hit the woman. It's not good and it's not right, but in that time, I guess it happened and it wasn't frowned on the way it should be. So whatever. I'm not going to take points off for that either. And that one scene in the Tunnel of Love, I really did like how they did that. How they were standing on the water, kind of like slab squatting or whatever you want to call it. That was good. I liked that. But that was about all I liked, to be completely fair. I did have sympathy for Alicia's character a little bit, I have to admit. But again, the whole thing, it kind of threw it off and made me not have that much sympathy for her. Except, yeah, I don't know. They needed to do that differently when they killed someone. Like, yeah, you gotta establish she's a vampire, obviously, but if her main trait is not wanting to be one and not wanting to hurt one, you gotta flesh that out and make her character act that way for the entirety of the movie, not just like every scene after her killing someone. So that's a thing. I don't know if I'd say it's a rip-off of The Lost Boys. I'd say there are a lot of similarities. I'm sure it was inspired by it, but I mean, there are some differences. So, I don't know, man. What am I going to rate this? I don't want to pass it. I can't give it a 5. I really don't think I can. Even though that one scene I did like, and there was potential. I mean, if it was ever remade, maybe it could be done in a good movie, but as it stands, this movie, I'm going to give it a 4.6. Not the worst thing ever. It wasn't as bad as like Carnosaur or anything. Like, don't get me wrong, it was not that bad. I probably will watch it again and give it another chance further down the road one day, maybe in a year or two or something. But like, it's not good, really. So, and again, it's not really to the fault of the actors, I don't think. I think it was just the way it was filmed and directed, and like the jump cuts and the inconsistency in the characters and all that made it, weakened it. So that's my rating. 4.6, Cold Hearts, 1999. Should you check it out? It's hard to find. It's not streaming on anywhere. I'll be honest, I bought the DVD off Amazon, and I got it, and I put it in my DVD player, and it didn't work at all. Tried it on my Xbox, PS4 and 3, and my Xbox Series S, and my PC, and none of them worked. So I got to return that one, and I ordered another one on eBay, and that one did work. So I mean, I don't know how good quality the printed DVDs are either. So I mean, for all of that, if you can download it somewhere, maybe do that, but don't seek it out. It wasn't worth the hassle of me trying to find it to watch it, but now I have, and yeah, 4.6. That's it. I'm ending it. That's good enough. Check it out or don't, but don't spend too much time looking for it. And if you can't find it, you're not missing much. Bye.